Another week, another conference, same venue.
Making a habit of this, Rick.
Making a habit out of this.
So, what do you think of yesterday?
It was interesting. It was at least a lot more content than last week, I would say. Last week was more about innovation and pitching. This one is really about the experience when in case of shopping and the whole back-end solutions in terms of payments. There was one topic that has not been sufficiently talked about, I think, that could make a change in the coming years.
Yep, absolutely. Pepsi.
If you could help us with a new name, that would be very valuable. Google couldn't help us.
We think it's EPS, but there's a whole lot of companies called EPS. What was Pepsi? Pan-European Payment System. Yeah, Pepsi. Pan-European Payment System. Initiative. Yeah.
Anyway, there is probably a reason why they didn't talk about it, and that's mostly because the industry doesn't believe in it.
I wonder why.
We spoke to one of the regulators this morning who had the same comment. That has been tried so much, and Europe remains a very political thing. So if we want to do something European, which country is gonna take the lead and dominate the whole initiative? Or can we avoid all that? It didn't work in the past, but today's circumstances did have changed, don't they?
They have changed. Some things haven't changed, and some things have. When we were speaking to the regulator this morning, he was pointing out that some things that haven't changed is that most of the countries in Europe probably want, particularly the big ones, France, Germany, maybe Italy, they would want their own domestic schemes to be the pan-European scheme. So it's interesting, Pepsi is a collaborative effort of 20 banks, mainly French and German.
Yep.
But the things that haven't changed is that every single one of those already has domestic schemes. Now, the chief of the ECB has said that the reason why the ECB is behind this and supporting this is because 2/3 of the cross-border payments made in those regions are on international cards, predominantly Visa and MasterCard. And the ECB are worried that these predominantly American-focused card schemes have not got Europe's interest in mind, at heart. And he believes that 20 years after the introduction of a single currency, Europe, I'm saying we, although UK has obviously just voted to get out of Europe, but Europe needs its own scheme that has its own interests at heart and cheaper, faster, and all the rest. So, do we think it's going to work this time round? What's changed and what hasn't?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the combination of open banking and instant payments is new. That didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday evening, we had another discussion where you made a very valid point. Could you share that, please?
Yeah, so my observation was that, and this is an opinion, I'm by no means an expert. I would bow to Chris Skinner, Dave Birch, and the experts in this area. But my opinion why it might have a different chance than before is that 10 years ago was Money, was that the scheme at the time, the last big one that they all tried? At that point in time, the banks, all of the major banks, were shareholders or members of the two big card schemes, Visa and MasterCard. And particularly Visa Europe, they sat on the board. The Visa Europe board was predominantly, had a big representation of banks, and the banks made a lot of money out of being part of the schemes. But within the last 10 years, of course, Visa has become a commercial company. It's had its IPO. And as far as I understand, there isn't a single bank now on Visa's board internationally. And I'm not sure of their shareholdings anymore, but I know that the European banks all cashed out on the IPO and the buyback and all this kind of thing. They actually made quite a good return on their investments. But maybe now the banks aren't as, they had split interests then, well, we're making money by being a member of the card schemes, and this is a lot of, it's hard work to introduce a new scheme. I can remember my first week at Visa in Samir, I was hired by the CFO, and he said, Andrew, if you want to understand schemes, you have to read these. And he put 2 big lever arch files, this thick, down in front of me. And he said, here are the Visa operating regulations, the rules that cover chargebacks and interchange and a dispute resolution, all of this. The technology is not really the difficult part. The difficult part is the sets of rules. Now, are we going to get an opportunity for these current 20 member banks to collaborate on what that book of rules is going to be that makes everybody across the single currency region happy? That's a big stretch. But from a commercial perspective, I think they've no longer got this conflict of interest with being members of Visa Europe, particularly in terms of financial interests. And again, the guys that know, please chime in the comments. But to me, it may give it a different chance. It's not the same playing field. And as you say, instant payments. The head of the ECB has said that their proposal is that it would work on the SCA, the SEPA rules, the original SEPA rules, credits rules, and the way that it's going to work. Open banking, there's a whole lot of things that have changed in the last 10 years. Maybe this time it'll give a shot, but it does take heavy collaboration between those.
All right. Thank you very much.
I hope that the people in here are up for more of a discussion over the next couple of days, because I think it's an important topic that's been completely overlooked at this conference.
Let's extend discussion on LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.